Good evening, everyone. Welcome to day 3 of logical reasoning for UGC NET Paper 1. Today we'll be continuing. In the last 2 days, we talked about the basic terms, deductive and inductive reasoning, syllogism, immediate references, mediate references, that is, rules of syllogism, moods and figures. And today we'll be talking about fallacies. So what is a fallacy? A fallacy is a mistake in reasoning. Okay, it may look logical, but it is actually flawed. There is an error somewhere. Fallacies are commonly asked in UGC NET questions to test your ability to spot weak arguments. Now, the fallacies that we are going to talk today are called Aristotelian logical reasoning. Okay, so far the logical reasoning that we have learned is all called Aristotelian logical reasoning. These were principles written by Aristotle. You have the words and the names in Latin language. Okay, when it comes to Indian logic system also, we have fallacies. They are called Hetavbhasa, and the concept is very different from Aristotelian reasoning. Okay, so today what we are going to learn are fallacies based on Western reasoning, just to make it easier to speak. And next, what we will learn when we learn Indian logic system, if today time permits, I'll take Hetavbhasa or in next session. Indian logic system would require at least 1 extra hour at the least. So the session for that would be on Sunday, 6 to 8 p.m., same time, and you can join with the same link. Okay. So now let's start with. There are two kinds of fallacies, formal fallacies and informal fallacies. Formal fallacies are errors in logical structure or form. So yesterday we learned rules of syllogism. So based on that, rules such as the middle term has to be distributed in one of the premise, the middle term has to be there in both premises, the middle term cannot be there in conclusion, and then rules for if one premise is particular, then the conclusion has to be particular. If one premise is negative, then the conclusion has to be negative. If there are two negative premises, there cannot be any conclusion. If there are two particular premises, there cannot be any conclusion. So based on errors of this kind, whatever fallacies are there, they are called formal fallacies. Informal fallacies are based on the reasoning. They are not struck. The sentence is structurally correct. The logic is correct, but it is not true. So we'll see both of them. First, let's start with formal fallacies. So there are 6 kinds of formal fallacies: denying the antecedent, affirming the consequent, undistributed middle, illicit major, illicit minor, exclusive premises, and existential fallacy. Okay. Take a screenshot of this. So let's talk about them one by one. Denying the antecedent. I'll just make the slide up. Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, that's correct. Okay, so it wrongly assumes that if A doesn't happen, then B cannot happen. So if A is B, okay, if A is B, then not A, not B. Now that is not essential. So if let's say if it rains, I will stay home. If A, then B. It did not rain, so I did not stay home. Now this is wrong because I probably stayed home for some another reason. Rain cannot be the one and only reason because of which I didn't stay. So denying the antecedent, that is a formal fallacy. If I study, I will pass. I didn't study, so I won't pass. Maybe you will pass based on whatever learning you did in the classroom or whatever prior knowledge you have. If she is a teacher, she has a degree. She is not a teacher, so she does not have a degree. Now that is not applicable because everyone who has a degree does not become teacher. You can also go into application roles, right? So that is called denying the antecedent. If A is B, then if not A, then not B. But actually the correct form is if A is B, not B, then not A. This is called modus tollens. So if she is a teacher, she has a degree. She does not have a degree, so she is not a teacher. That is the correct syllogism or correct reasoning. Same here. If it rains, I will stay home. I didn't stay home means it did not rain. That is the correct syllogism. Clear with this? Okay. Now, if this was clear, then the second is similar. It assumes that B can happen only because of A. The consequence is affirmed, affirming the consequent. It assumes that the only reason B can happen is because of A, which is not always true. So here, if you see, we saw that if A is B, not B, then not A. But here it says, if A is B, then B is true, so A is true. That's wrong. The correct form is modus ponens, which is, excuse me, if A is true, then B is true. Let's see an example. If I eat peanuts, I will get a rash. I have a rash, that means I must have eaten peanuts. But it could be a different allergy. There could be a lot of other reasons for having a rash, right? However, the reverse is true. If I eat peanuts, I will get a rash. I must have eaten peanut. If I say that I have eaten, am I still audible? Okay, the video might stop, like my face might freeze because I just connected with my mobile internet. There was a power cut. So please don't focus on that. Please focus on the slides. Okay. Can you show the previous slide, Revati ji? If I keep on showing previous slides, how are we going to move forward? Once I explain it, I'll go back to that slide. Please be patient. Okay, if he is a doctor, he wears a white coat. He wears a white coat, so he is a doctor. Now, every person who wears a white coat not necessarily be a doctor. Scientists who work in research institutes also wear white coats. So, but if he is a doctor, then he definitely is wearing a white coat. According to the previous statement that if he is a doctor, he wears a white coat. He is a doctor, that then he has to wear a white coat. Okay. This is called affirming the consequent. It assumes that B can happen only because of A, which is not always true. The third is policy of the undistributed middle. Now this one is quite commonly asked. The middle term. What is the middle term? The middle term is that term which is there in the first premise, that is the major premise, which is there in the minor premise, that is the second premise, but it is not there in the conclusion. Okay. Now, as per the rules of syllogism, the middle term has to be distributed at least once. That is, there has to be some sort of statement about all entities included in that middle term, either all or something that is not true about all. Otherwise, that syllogism is not valid. That is called the fallacy of the undistributed middle, and it is one of the favorite questions for UGC NET. Either they will give you four options and say which one of this is fallacy of undistributed middle, or they'll give you question and then ask that what is the fallacy here. Now, if all A are C, here A is distributed, all B are C, here B is distributed. The major term, the minor term are distributed, but C, which is the middle term, is not distributed in the major or the minor premise, in the first or the second premise. That is why if any kind of conclusion is drawn, all A or B, no A or B, some A or B, any kind of conclusion drawn from this will be invalid. Okay. For example, all cats are animals. All dogs are animals. Therefore, all cats are dogs. It will not be true because animals, which is the middle term, is not distributed in any of the premises. All apples are fruits. All mangoes are fruits. So all apples are mangoes. Now here, the middle term, that is fruits, is not distributed. So again, this becomes fallacy of the undistributed middle. Clear with this? Okay. Next, illicit process. This is of two types, illicit major and illicit minor. Okay. When we talk about the major term, it is called illicit major. And when we talk about the minor term, it is called illicit minor. The major term is distributed in conclusion, but it is not distributed in the premise. Now, any term which is distributed in the conclusion has to be distributed in either of the premise first. The middle term does not occur in conclusion, so this does not apply to that. But see, all dogs are animals. Okay, no cats are dogs. Now here, what's the major term? Dogs and dogs is common, so that becomes your middle term. Your first premise is all dogs are animals. So animals is your major term. Now, no cats are animals. Here both cats and animals are distributed, saying that all the cats are not animals and all the animals are not cats. So if you see all dogs are animals and no cats are dogs, then no cats are animals is actually not true, because cats could be another kind of animal, which is not a dog. So this is a wrong syllogism. I mean, this is not a valid syllogism, and that is why it is called fallacy of illicit major. Another example is all poets are writers and no criminals are poets. So no criminals are writers. Now criminals are not poets, but then there could be, apart from poets, there could be other kinds of writers, screenwriter, story writers. And what if criminals are one of those? Then this will not be valid. Logically, if you think in terms of structure, because the major term here, which is poets is common. So writers is your major term. Writers is not distributed here. So here when you say no criminals are writers, writers is distributed, which is wrong. Clear with this? Next, Now illicit minor. Here the same thing happens, but instead of major term, the minor term is distributed in conclusion but not distributed in the minor premise. See, all apples are fruits, all oranges are fruits, therefore all oranges are apples. First, let's see, fruits here is the middle term. We are talking about minor term. So minor premise is all oranges are fruits. Oranges is our minor term. Okay. All oranges are apples. Now, here, actually it is distributed, isn't it? Okay. There is some error from my end. All oranges are fruits. All oranges are apples. The conclusion is obviously wrong. Just give me a moment. Apples are fruits. All fruits are oranges. Therefore, all oranges. Okay. Okay, now it goes. See, fruits is the middle term. So let's not count that. In the minor premise, oranges is not distributed. The minor term is not distributed. But here in the conclusion, it is distributed. Now read it again. All apples are fruits. All fruits are oranges. Therefore, all oranges are apples. Now that might not be true because apple is a subset of fruits and fruits is a subset of oranges. All oranges are apples, okay, is wrongly assumed. All students are learners. Some students are not teachers. Therefore, some teachers are not learners. Okay. Here we are talking about some teachers not being learners, but then again, this is not a valid syllogism. Because here teachers is, we are talking only about some students not being teachers. This is not a quality that is applicable to all teachers. Okay. See, fallacy may be fallacy. Okay, I'll explain this once again. Illicit minor, the minor term is distributed in the conclusion. Now, if you see, teachers is distributed in the conclusion, but it is not distributed in the premise. That is why previously also it was invalid, but the fallacy was different. Here the fallacy is illicit minor. At least I hope you are clear with the fallacies of illicit major and minor. Okay. The next is fallacy of exclusive premises. When you have two negative premises, there cannot be a any kind of conclusion. So this is, so when you have two negative premises and a conclusion is drawn, it is called fallacy of exclusive premises. No birds are mammals, no mammals are reptiles, therefore no birds are reptiles. It would be invalid in any case. When there are two no's or when there are two some, there cannot be any conclusion. But here, when there are two no's, it is called fallacy of exclusive premises. I think we discussed it yesterday as well. Some fruits are not sweet is a negative premise because there is not. No vegetables are fruits, therefore no vegetables are sweet. This conclusion is invalid. No leaders are followers, some followers are not honest. Therefore, some leaders are not honest. Again, this would not be a valid premise, valid conclusion. It's a faultive connection because both of them have not in it. Both of them are negative. Clear with this? Okay. Existential fallacy. Assuming that all statements imply existence. Okay. All A or B does not prove that A exists. All unicorns are magical. All magical things are rare. Therefore, some unicorns are rare. But what if there are no unicorns? I mean, so far it has not been proven that unicorns exist. So it is an existential fallacy. All dragons breathe fire. All fire breathers are dangerous. Therefore, some dragons are dangerous. Again, dragons may not exist. So far, we have not seen them. All square circles are impossible shapes. All impossible shapes cannot exist. Therefore, some square circles cannot exist. Now, so far, there is nothing called square circle. That is why, if they ask what is the fallacy here, then it is an existential fallacy. That there is nothing called square circle in this world so far, or at least it has not been seen or proven yet. Clear with this existential fallacy? So these meaning it is not sound. It does not exist. It's like saying, it's like talking about ghosts, unicorns, dragons. They are, right now, at least they are not there in the world. Probably 25,000 years back, even if they were, who among us has seen it? There are no written records also of dragons. Of unicorns, to confirm, there is no record. The premise is factually incorrect. Because, yes, because dragons may not exist. That is why it is existential fallacy. Those things, not just fact-wise. Now, if I say that all leaders are kind, that might be untrue. But leaders and kindness do exist in this world. Okay? So that's not an existential fallacy. So these are the 6 structural fallacies: denying the antecedent, affirming the consequent, undistributed middle, illicit major, illicit minor, exclusive premises, and existential fallacy. Undistributed middle and exclusive premises. These are the 2 favorite ones, but then others also have been asked. Okay. See here. Fallacy of 4 terms, which is the last option, is if you remember the first rule of syllogism, there has to be only 3 terms: a major term, a minor term, and a middle term. If there is a 4th term, then the syllogism is not valid. So if there are 4 terms, it is called fallacy of 4 terms. Okay. Okay. Name the fallacy committed in the following. All the textbooks are books intended for careful study. Some reference books are books intended for careful study. Therefore, some reference books are textbook. Now, imagine this as 3 sentences in a line, that all textbooks are books intended for careful study. Some reference books are books intended for careful study. Therefore, some reference books are textbooks. Now, which fallacy is committed here? Already Told you that undistributed is the most favorite one. First, always check for undistributed middle term. Okay. Here, what is the middle term? Books intended for careful study. All textbooks are books intended for careful study. Textbooks is distributed. Books intended for careful study is not. Some reference books are books intended for careful study. Here, both minor term and the middle term are not distributed. So the middle term is not distributed in either major premise or minor premise. With what is the middle term here? Books intended for careful study. You went for the complex one. Same. Some reference books are textbooks. Some reference books are textbooks. Here in the conclusion, neither reference book is distributed, neither textbook is distributed. Now in the conclusion, when the major term and minor term both are not distributed, how can it be a fallacy of illicit minor or major? That exists when something is distributed in the conclusion but not in the premise. And there are only 3 terms here. So fallacy of 4 terms is also not applicable. Clear? Especially the ones who were a bit confused. See, I'll show you this again. I think because the wrong example probably. The major term is distributed in the conclusion but not in the premise. That is illicit major. Now first you need to see whether if it is distributed in the conclusion or not. Only if it is distributed in conclusion but not in premise, then this happens. For example, here when you say no criminals are writers, then the writers is distributed here. But if it is not distributed in the conclusion, then this cannot be applied. Same. Illicit minor is when the minor term is distributed in conclusion but not in the premise. All teachers are not learners. Okay. So, sorry, something happened. All teachers are not learners. So here, all teachers is distributed. Okay. But it is not distributed in this statement. So when it is distributed in the conclusion, but not in the premise, that is when it becomes illicit minor. Clear with this? Illicit major and minor? The rest of you? Okay. Okay. Next, which formal fallacy is committed? Now, these are questions from last 2-3 years, okay? Which formal fallacy is committed in the argument? No politician are idiots. Some voters are not idiots. Therefore, some voters are not politicians. No politicians are idiots. Some voters are not idiots. Therefore, some voters are not politicians. This is the second favorite. Exclusive premises. Both the premises are negative. So there any conclusion cannot be drawn from 2 negative premises. No politicians, not idiots. Both of them are negative premises. 2 negative premises cannot draw a conclusion. They are exclusive premises. Okay? Clear with this? Next. No poets are scientists. Some artists are poets. Therefore, some artists are scientists. Which formal fallacy is committed in this argument? I'll repeat it again. No poets are scientists. Some artists are poets. Therefore, Some artists are scientists. Which formal fallacy is committed in this argument? Denying the antecedent, exclusive premises, policy of drawing an affirmative conclusion from a negative premise, existential fallacy. Because when the premises are negative, at least one negative premise ensures that one negative premise means the conclusion has to be negative. So the conclusion cannot be positive. See, here the middle term, poets, is distributed in the first premise. So undistributed middle, it cannot happen. It's not even there in option. The second premise is affirmative. So exclusive premises cannot happen. Okay. And poets, scientists, artists, all of them exist. So existential fallacy is also not there. Now, next topic is informal fallacies. Now, informal fallacies is when the problem is not with the structure, but the way reasoning is done. Okay. They are based on content flaws or misuse of language, not logical structure. The first, now see, I have tried to classify them. It's a long list of fallacies, and I tried to classify them into fallacies of relevance and presumption, then ambiguity. Okay. So I've tried to classify them because once a question has also been asked that which of this is not a fallacy of relevance. Okay. So try to remember it accordingly based on that classification. That will be of help. And it will also make it easier instead of having a long list of, I think 6, 7, like 20 fallacies. It's better to distribute them in chunks, makes it easier to remember. Okay. Now, fallacies of relevance are those fallacies that distract from the actual argument. In what way? By using emotion, personal attack, or irrelevant reasoning. Let's have a look at them. The first one is ad hominem, also called personal attack. Okay. Either personal attack or ad hominem. One of this can be your option. So you need to remember both of them are same. Instead of attacking the argument, this fallacy attacks the person making the argument. Don't listen to her opinion on climate change. She failed her science class. He's too young to understand politics, so his opinion doesn't matter. You can't trust Ramesh's views on fitness. Look at how fat he is. Now, even if he is fat, it's like saying you should not learn dance from him because he is fat. And we know of choreographers who, the top choreographers is in India, your body size has got nothing to do with it. But when you see a statement like that, it is called ad hominem fallacy, personal attack. Clear with this? Next. To quoque, these are all Latin words. It's called U2, and to quoque is actually a word given as option in exams. So you should know that it is the hypocrisy fallacy. Okay, dismissing someone's argument by saying that they don't practice what they preach. If you remember, there's a story by story of Mahatma Gandhi that a mother went to him that please tell my child not to eat jaggery a lot. So he said come after 10 days, and then after 10 days he had left eating jaggery, and then he said that Vida, you should not eat a lot of jaggery. So she said that you could have said this thing 10 days back. So he said that I was not practicing it, so I wouldn't say it. But here it says that even if you are saying something, it could be true even if you don't practice it. So dismissing someone, so I'm just sharing this story so that you remember this. To quoque is a fallacy where you say that just because you are doing it, you don't have the right to tell this to me. Dismissing someone's argument by saying, am I still audible? Yeah, okay. So you say smoking is unhealthy, but you smoke too. So you can't say that. That is an argument, which is a hypocrisy policy. You say not to lie, but you lied last week. So the truth of the claim is ideally independent of the speaker's behavior, but when we give that argument, it is called hypocrisy fallacy. Clear with this? Next, argumentum ad baculum, or appeal to force or threat. Using force or threats instead of logic. Agree with the boss or you will lose your job. Even if the boss is wrong, you are supposed to agree with it. In the meeting, it is said that don't argue, just agree with the boss or we will remove you from the job. Now, this is an argument which does not use logic, but it uses force or threat. If you don't accept our terms, we will sue you. This is called argumentum ad baculum, or appeal to force or appeal to threat. Any of this could be the words used here as an option in exam. Clear with this? Next. Argumentum ad misericordium. See, the word misery comes from misericordium. Just remember it that way. And misery is pity. Misery is sadness. So appeal to pity. Using pity to win arguments instead of facts. Please pass me in the exam. I have family problems. So that is an argument based on pity. Do not fire me from the job. I have kids to feed. Now, that is not a logical argument that for why you should not, what should I say, fire me from the job. However, it is given here. Next. Clear with this? Appeal to pity? Next. Argumentum ad populum. Appeal to popularity. Claiming something is true just because many people believe in it. Everyone is investing in crypto, so it has to be the best decision. Now, this is not logic. Logic is when you give data, stats, figures. Millions follow this influencer, so she must be right. Now again, this is appeal to popularity. It is not logic. She could be wrong. So this is argumentum ad populum or appeal to popularity fallacy. Okay. Here it talks about the number of people who believe in it. Okay. I think the next one should be appeal to. We'll have one more fallacy that time I'll talk. Next, red herring. Distracting from the real issue with something irrelevant. Why are you late? The answer given is, did you see the cricket match yesterday? There's no logical flow. We shouldn't ban plastic bags. What about unemployment? So you are trying to distract from the real issue by putting out some other issue which has got no direct correlation. Let's not talk about corruption. Okay, there are bigger problems like inflation. Or if they say, why did you not write the truth in your resume? So the answer given is, nowadays companies also lie to employees, which is not a logical argument for why did you lie on your resume. That is called red herring, distracting from the real issue with something irrelevant. Clear with this? Red herring. Next. Straw man fallacy. Misrepresenting someone's argument to make it easier to attack. Okay, like we should have stricter rules in exams. So you want to make students suffer and have no freedom? Now, this argument, which talks about having strict rules in exams, does not actually encroach the freedom of students, right? But it is twisted and misrepresented in a way that now it becomes easier to attack. He said he wants to reduce military spending. He must want to leave the country defenseless. Reducing military spending does not mean the country becomes defenseless. Okay? It is misrepresented to show the other person in a bad light, and so that now they can be easily attacked. She supports online education. She must hate schools and teachers. So now, because you are attending the class online here, it means you hate colleges which are offline. That is a kind of argument which is called straw man fallacy. You are misrepresenting the argument so that it becomes easier to attack. So that after that, you can easily attack the other person. It's not a personal attack. Okay, you are not attacking that person like as a person, that you are bad. What you are talking about is taking the argument in such a direction that it becomes easier to further attack that person. Clear? Okay. Appeal to authority. Now, we had appeal to popularity, and this is appeal to authority. Ad verecundium. So someone's fame or position is a proof. When we talked about popularity, we say that most of India loves what? Most of India loves ice cream. So ice cream is a good thing. That is a popularity. Here it is appeal to authority. You are saying because someone is a celebrity or a famous person, what they are saying is correct, even though that statement was not made in a field in which they are expert. My favorite actor says this diet works, so it must be healthy. An actor giving statement about acting, great. But an actor giving statement about diet, which is actually the role of nutritionist, is not, you cannot take that as truth or as a logical conclusion which is true. So my favorite actor says this diet works, so it must be healthy, is appeal to authority. You are giving authority to someone who's not an expert in their field, but is a celebrity or an expert in some other area. A cricket player advertised this toothpaste, so it must be the best. This political leader supports this idea, so it must be correct. Now, if this idea is not related to governance of the nation, then it is not an idea which is correct. Okay, someone saying mutual funds sahi hai, but he is not from the finance world. You need to look up to people in the field of economics and finance, and then when they say something like that, it's okay. Just because someone of other profession says that, you cannot believe it. I'm just giving an example, okay? I'm not saying mutual funds are right or wrong. That is not our topic here. The topic is to give you an example which you will immediately recall. Appeal to authority. A cricketer saying this is the best TV or is not a topic for him to be an expert on. Technology people should say that, right? Okay. Next, ignoratio elenchi, irrelevant conclusion. Now, this conclusion actually does not follow from the premises. Based on the premise, you say something, but it has got no relation there. Like, we must ban online games. They are addictive. But the topic was about screen time limits, that children are spending so much time on screen. So we must ban online games. So we must, limit their screen time. But instead of screen time, it became online games should be banned. He is a great singer. So he should be a great actor too. because he's a great singer, he should be a great actor. Now that is an irrelevant conclusion. You don't know about his acting skills. Like in recently in a dance reality show, there was a dancer who won the first prize, but he sings very badly. So in every episode, they used to make him sing out of tune, just to spend 5-10 more minutes on television. So because he's the good dancer who won the first prize, does not necessarily mean he's a good singer. But here when you say he's a great dancer, so he's also a great singer. That is irrelevant conclusion. This is a short recap of fallacy of relevance. You can take a screenshot with examples. Okay. So moving on to the next type of fallacies, fallacies of presumption. They involve wrong assumptions or misuse of logic in the structure. The first one is petitio principii, also called as bagging the question or also called as circular reasoning. Here the argument repeats itself instead of proving anything. So the conclusion is assumed in the premise. No real proof is given. For example, I am trustworthy because I tell the truth. She is a good teacher because she teaches well. This is a circular reasoning. She is a good teacher because she teaches well. Because she teaches well, she is a good teacher. Reading is beneficial because it is good for you. These are the answers that we usually give to our children when they ask questions for which we don't have detailed explanations. Why are stars in the sky? Stars are there in the sky because stars are there in the sky. This is called circular reasoning. Democracy is the best system because it is better than all others, which is again, which being better than all others means best. Clear with this? Okay. So for presumption, there is a problem with reasoning. Next. Plurium interrogationum. Interrogation is an English word. This num is a Latin. It is also simply called complex question or loaded question. Now, if you remember in childhood, we used to ask questions like, did you stop being crazy? Just answer in yes or no. Did you stop being crazy? If you say yes, it means you were crazy before, but now you have stopped being crazy. If you say no, it means you are still crazy. Now, this is a question which assumes you are crazy in either case. We used to play this with, we used to tease our classmates like this. Okay. So that is a complex question or a loaded question. Asking a question that contains an unfair assumption. Have you stopped cheating in exams? If you say yes, it means you were cheating before, now you have stopped. If you say no, it means you still cheat in exams. Assumes you were cheating before. So unless there is a reference story given where you were cheating before, this is a loaded question. Why are you always rude to your friends? It already assumes that you are rude. Clear with this? Next, false alternatives. Now here the person is given only two options, saying that it is either this or that. There is no other third option, which is actually wrong. There are other options possible. So this is a false dilemma, false alternatives, or either or fallacy. Three names. Okay. Either or fallacy has also been asked, and false alternatives has also been asked in exam, like given in options. Presenting only two choices when more exist. You are either with us or against us. There is a third place called being neutral, but that is not given here. If you don't become an engineer, you will fail in life. So you have only two options: become an engineer and fail in life. So I hope this example makes you understand that there are a lot of other options apart from being engineer. Okay. So if you don't become a doctor or you don't become an engineer, then life is gone. That's not the case. India must either ban all the cars or face climate disaster. There are only two options: ban the cars or face climate disaster. There's third option. We could make electric cars, we could make hydro-powered cars, but here it is shown that there are only two options. This is called false alternatives. Dilemma is when you are confused between two choices. So false dilemma and either or fallacy. Clear with this? Next, fallacy of composition. Now this is also been asked. At least I have seen a few questions with this. It is the error of assuming what is true of the parts must also be true of the whole. What is true of the parts must also be true of the whole. Each piece has the property X. So entire structure must have the property X. For example, each brick in this building is small. So the entire building is small. Every player on the football team is a star. So the team must be best in the league. But it discounts what about them playing together as a team? What about team dynamics? Are they all together as a team, good as a team? May not be. Each chapter in this book is interesting. So the book must be interesting. May not be. If the entire theme is not connecting, if those chapters are not connecting with each other, then the entire book might not be interesting. This is called fallacy of composition, saying that because the hair, each hair is black, so my body must be black in color. It is that kind of fallacy. Okay, fallacy of composition, assuming that the quality of the part is that true for the whole of the thing. Next, the opposite of it, fallacy of division. Assuming what is true of the whole must also be true of its parts. My entire body is alive, so my hair should also be alive. May not be. Hair is dead proteins, so it's not alive. The university is ranked number 1 in the country, so every professor in it must be number 1 in their field or best in their field. May not be true. This cake is delicious, so each ingredient must taste delicious on its own. If you would have eaten baking soda, you would know it does not taste delicious, but here it says that. So that is fallacy of division, the opposite. Composition says what is true of the part is true for the whole. Division says what is true of the whole must be true of the parts. This car is heavy, so each part of the car must be heavy too. May not be. The cushions might be lighter in weight. Clear with fallacy of composition and division? Okay. Next, sweeping generalization or accident. They just write accident in the option. They don't even write policy with it. It happens when someone applies a general rule rigidly to all the situations, ignoring that there are some exceptions where the rule does not fit. Freedom of speech means I can say anything, even lies, even slang language. I can insult anyone. Okay, I remember my my tuition teacher for English used to tell us that a story that a man was walking with umbrella in on the, what do we call it, pedestrian walk. My God, I don't remember the word for it. On the side of the road. Let's assume that he was walking with an umbrella on the side of the road and he was swinging it. So there was a man coming from the front and the umbrella almost hit him in the face. So he said, please look at where you are walking and walk carefully. Your umbrella might hurt someone. So he said that I have freedom of expression. I am living in a free country. So as a citizen, I am free to do whatever I want. So I can swing the umbrella. So he said that, gentlemen, your freedom to swing the umbrella ends where my nose begins. Something of that sort. So remember this story when it comes to accident, that freedom of speech does not mean you can say anything. There are some exceptions. Doctors always help people so they cannot be guilty of fraud. No, otherwise we wouldn't have needed courts and for misconduct or mistakes during surgeries or things like that, right? So that is called sweeping generalization. Clear with this? Next, post hoc or false cause. Okay, assuming that one thing happened because one thing happened after other, it caused it. There's a saying in Gujarati, my mother tongue, they say, Kaganu pasu, dadno padu. The moment crow sat on the branch of the tree, the branch fell down. So because the crow sat, the branch fell down. This is false cause. Because the crow was cawing outside my house, guests have come to my home. This is again false cause. Because I ate pani puri today, I failed in exam. So moving forward, whenever there is exam, I will not eat pani puri. My true life incident. My father said that whenever I wish you best of luck, you lose marks in the exam. You make silly mistakes. So whenever I go for exam of any kind, even today in life, when I am trying to do something new or going for a big event or for starting a workshop or anything, he will never wish me best of luck because he believes that because of that I will make a silly mistake. That is called false cause. He'll always do like this, but he will not say best of luck. That is called false cause. You will remember a lot of it from incidences from your life. I wore my lucky shirt and passed the exam, so the shirt gave me luck. I wore wrong socks today and got first prize, so because of that, I got first prize. No talent, no hard work. The street light went off and I fell. So because of that light, I fell. After she joined the team, we won. So because of her, we won. Like we say, after getting married to her, I've gotten better opportunities in life. So because of her, I got promoted in my job. Okay. Emotionally, maybe true, but logically, it is called false cause. Clear with this? Okay. So these are all fallacies of presumption. Begging the question or circular reasoning. Circular reasoning is also a term used. Loaded question, complex question, false dilemma. Please take screenshots. Next one, this. Policy of composition, policy of division, sweeping generalization, and post hoc. Please take a screenshot. Next, policies of weak induction, poor generalization. Okay, you might feel all of these policies seem very similar and they shouldn't be classified like this, but I've classified them for the sole purpose of making it easy to remember. And second, once a question was asked, which of this is not a policy of relevance? And 4 options were given. Considering that, we are using this classification. Okay. Poor generalization or faulty reasoning based on examples. Based on examples. Like this. Sample size fallacy. Hasty generalization. Think of research aptitude and things that we do there. Drawing a conclusion from too small or unrepresentative a sample. 2 of my friends failed UGC NET, so it must be an impossible exam to pass. 1 online course was bad, so all online learning is useless. Okay, that is called hasty generalization, when the sample size is too small to reach a conclusion. It is also called sample size fallacy. Clear? Saying that 3 people from a state eat spicy food, so the entire state eats spicy food. Or yeah, something that is very commonly said for Gujarat, that all Gujaratis eat sweet food, which is false, by the way. Not all of us put sugar and jaggery in everything. That is also a sample size policy, but because you had once a sweet dal, you cannot reach to that conclusion. When you start having it umpteen number of times, only then you can reach that conclusion, which might be true, but just an example. Converse policy of accident. Now, we saw the policy of accident here somewhere. Sweeping generalization. Applying a general rule so rigidly that exceptions where the rule does not fit, they are also not considered. Now here is the opposite of it. Faulty generalization from a special case. Using an exception to say that this opposite of that rule is right. Using an exception to form a general rule. This athlete smokes and is healthy, so smoking must be fine. My grandma never exercised and lived till 90 years of age, so there is no need to exercise. Don't we say that especially for the smokers or the drinkers, that it is said that drinking will lead to liver issues. You say, no, my dad used to drink till the age of 17, nothing happened to him. So nothing will happen to me also. It could probably be an exception. For the ones eating tobacco, India is #1 in oral cancer. You can check statistics. Being a dentist, I can vouch for that. India is #1 in oral cancer, but I know of people who say that, no, my friend, so many friends ate tobacco and they did not get oral cancer. So nothing is going to happen to me also. That is converse policy of accident. Relating with examples from life probably make it easier to understand, right? So that's the only reason. Baki your life, your wish. Faulty generalization from a special case. Clear with this converse policy of accident? Okay. Next, slippery slope. Again, one of the famous policies to come in options. Claiming that one small step will lead to extreme, usually negative consequences. If we allow late submissions today, no one will ever respect deadlines. May not be true actually. No one will ever respect deadlines is a very big thing to say. just for allowing late submissions for 1 day. It is just like saying that if we start the class late by 10 minutes, we will never ever be able to start again the class again on time. No, there could be a lot of technological reasons, technical reasons for starting the class late. What if someone was not feeling well and or someone had some personal emergency and that's why they start the class 10 minutes late? Saying that they will never be able to start the class on time again? All of us are educators here, right? All of us must have faced situations where we, due to XYZ reason, we go late to the class. Saying that you will never be on time again is a slippery slope. If we allow kids to watch TV, soon they will stop reading and then fail their exams and ruin their future. Watching 1 hour of TV will not ruin their future, but this is an example of slippery slope. Clear with this? Clear with this? Okay. Next, appeal to ignorance, argumentum ad ignorentium. Okay, all this argumentum ad words, they come from Latin language. Claiming something is true because it hasn't been proven false or vice versa. No one has proved ghosts don't exist, so they must be real. No one has proved ghosts exist, so they must not be real. Both of them are wrong. Appeal to ignorance. There is no proof for their existence, so they must not exist. That is appeal to ignorance. There is no evidence that aliens exist, so they must not exist. Claiming something that is true, claiming something is true because it hasn't been proven false. Clear with this? Okay. So this is the summary of fallacy of weak induction, hasty generalization, also called sample size fallacy, converse fallacy of accident, slippery slope, and appeal to ignorance. Can take a screenshot. And the last one, fallacies due to ambiguity. These fallacies occur when ambiguous, unclear, or double meaning language is used. Okay, and by double meaning, we mean words which could have different meanings, words which could, different spellings but same pronunciation. That is what we mean here. Homonyms, homophones, stressing on different words in the same statement. You will see as the examples come. Please do not misunderstand the meaning of the word, either accidentally or intentionally, to mislead or confuse the person. For example, equivocation fallacy. Okay, using the same word with two different meanings in an argument, it means the same thing throughout. I have the right to speak, so it is right for me to say anything I want. The right in the first statement is a legal right, like rights and duties. In the second statement, the meaning of the word right is right or wrong. That way. Second example, a feather is light. What is light cannot be dark, therefore a feather cannot be dark. In the first sentence, light talks about light versus heavy. It talks about weight. In second statement, light versus dark talks about brightness. So using the same word, but in a different meaning, that is equivocation fallacy. Take a second to read and understand. Clear? Clear with equivocation fallacy? Same word, different meanings. In the first argument, you give a different meaning. In second argument, you use a different meaning. And then you draw a conclusion which is wrong, which is a fallacy. Next, amphibole, it should be actually, grammatical ambiguity. Okay. Here, the statement is grammatically unclear. I saw the men with the telescope. Now, this statement could have two meanings. With the telescope, I saw the man, or I saw a man who was holding telescope in his hands. So did I have the telescope or did he have the telescope? Did I have telescope and then I looked at him through the telescope, or did he have the telescope and I looked at him while he was holding telescope? It could have both meanings. So grammatically, it is unclear. Okay, it's a grammatical error. Flying planes can be dangerous. So what is dangerous? The planes which are flying, or being a pilot and flying planes? Are we talking about planes that fly or people flying them? Clear with this? The last one is accent fallacy, which will not be probably there in exam, but if it is given as option, you should know the meaning of it. Accent fallacy or shifting emphasis. While we are speaking something, based on what word we stress, orally, speaking, the meaning changes. She didn't take his book. Did she take someone else's book? She didn't take his book. If I'm stressing the word book, it means she didn't take his book, but did she take something else? So depending on what word I am stressing, the meaning changes. Second example, I didn't say you stole the money. So maybe someone else did. I only implied it. Second, I didn't say you stole the money, which means you stole something else. There could also be, I didn't say you stole the money. I didn't say it. I implied it. I watched it. I did something else, but I didn't speak with my mouth. I didn't say you stole the money. Someone else said it. Depending on the word that is stressed, the meaning changes. Clear with this? Accent fallacy. If it comes as an option, you should know that what is the meaning of this and that it is not the correct answer. So far, I have not seen any question. How can you give an accent fallacy based question unless you bold the words and asked if the meaning changes based on the word that is stressed, what kind of fallacy it is? Only then the answer can be accent fallacy, because it is something that happens while speaking. So 3 fallacies due to ambiguity. Please take a screenshot. Okay, so that completes the list of fallacies, and now we move on to solving questions. Molecules are in random motion. Qutub Minar is composed of molecules. Therefore, Qutub Minar is in a constant random motion. Identify the fallacy committed in the above statement. Equivocation, slippery slope, hasty generalization, or fallacy of composition. Equivocation means two words, one word with two different meanings is used, which is not happening here. Slippery slope is taking it a bit too far. Maybe the consequences are not really as great as that. So here we are not talking about consequences. Hasty generalization. The sample size is too small to reach a conclusion. So if we talked about 5 more buildings, then we could have proved that it was in constant random motion. Probably not. It is the fallacy of composition. Molecules are in random motion, molecules are parts, but that is not true of the whole. That is Qutub Minar. Next. Identify the fallacy. These are all previous year questions, okay, from last few years. So these have been asked. Identify the fallacy committed in the following statement. Water is a non-poisonous compound. Therefore, its components, oxygen and hydrogen, are non-poisonous. This is the fallacy of what kind? Fallacy of division, equivocation, slippery slope, hasty generalization. So this is the opposite of the previous one. From the whole, it is said that if the whole thing is non-poisonous, then its parts must also be non-poisonous. The fallacy of division. However, we know that oxygen in its pure form will burn us if it goes into the lungs. Nitrogen is very important for us to stay alive when we are breathing in oxygen, and hydrogen, we know bombs are made from it. So a huge source of energy. Which of the following is not a fallacy of relevance? Ad hominem, attacking the motive, to quoque, false alternatives. False alternatives. Okay. Next, you need to match the 4 fallacies with descriptions given in the set 2. And I'll increase the slide size so that it becomes more visible. Strawman fallacy, red herring, equivocation, bagging the question. First, when an arguer tries to sidetrack his audience by raising an irrelevant issue and claims the original issue is settled. Second, when an arguer states or assumes a premise as the very thing she is trying to prove as a conclusion. Third, when arguer distorts an opponent's claim to make it easier to attack. Fourth, when a key word is used in 2 or more senses in the same argument. Match them fast. In such cases, there has to be at least one option which you are very sure of. So for me, the one which I can be very sure is begging the question or circular reasoning. Second, being someone from English language, I could say equivocation. Even if you don't understand the other two, based on this also you can make this. Probably for someone, strawman could be that something that they remember. For someone, red herring could be something that they remember. Of course, you should remember all of them. Sometimes they just give you the name of fallacy and ask that which of the given options belongs to this. But for match A with B, you just need to verify once you have shortened it to two options. So the answer is yes, it is 4. Next, which of the following statements is true about the proposition a ship has mass, therefore all parts of the ship have mass? Fallacy of division, the fallacy of equivocation, the fallacy of hasty generalization. It is a non-fallacious statement. Fallacy of hasty generalization is when the sample size is small. So if we were talking about a ship and an aeroplane and also about trucks, cars, and rockets, would it have made more sense? Sample size fallacy. Hasty generalization does not mean fatafat kar liya. It means the sample size is small. Physics, everything has mass. It is not the fallacy of division. This question has been asked, okay? So if they say that a ship has a lot of electrons, therefore all parts of ships have a lot of electrons, it would be true because all of them have atoms and all of the atoms have electrons. Okay? Something like that. School level learning, which we all have forgotten years back. Next, identify the fallacy committed in the following. Ford cars are lemons. I have owned 2 and they gave me nothing but trouble. So when you say something is lemons, it's like, nah, not great. Okay. But that is language. Here we are talking about logical reasoning. See, there's also an option called no fallacy. So finally, we have an example of hasty generalization. The sample size is only two Ford cars, and it is concluded that all Ford cars are lemons or all Ford cars are faulty and they give trouble. Okay. False alternative is when you have only 2 choices and you are disregarding all other choices available. Appeal to authorities when you are talking about someone who's an expert or a celebrity in one field, but not in the one which you are giving example of. Okay, here it is I, so that would not apply. Next, no one has been able to prove that psychic powers do not exist. Therefore, it is proved that psychic powers do exist. Identify the fallacy here. Appeal to ignorance, hasty generalization, strictly slow equivocation. So here your answer is appeal to ignorance. Because there is no proof, we are claiming that the opposite thing is correct. But there's no proof on this side or that side. Next. Really sorry for the very, very small fonts. I'll read it. Which policy is exemplified in the following statements? Of course, gun ownership should not be prohibited. You can kill someone with hockey stick, but no one proposes to ban ownership of hockey sticks. Slippery slope, weak analogy, red herring, straw man. Of course, gun ownership should not be prohibited. You can kill someone with hockey stick, but no one proposes to ban ownership of hockey sticks. Weak analogy is the answer. See, analogy is where there is comparison between two things. Here, guns are being compared to hockey sticks, but the, what should I say, percentage with which like people murder using hockey sticks versus the percentage with which people can murder using guns is very high. So this is a wrong comparison. If it was another weapon, then great. But here, comparing a sports equipment, which is ideally not used for killing, is wrong. Next, Switzerland is 48% Protestant. See, Protestant means just like in India, we have different, what should I say, religious following. Like, although we fall under Hindu, everyone follows a different sect, religious sect. Some are Shaivites, some are Vaishnavites. In Islam, there are Shias and Sunnis, and even in that, there is there are classes. Similarly, for Christians, Catholics and Protestants are two big divisions. If you remember all the history of Italian Renaissance and all that, where the people who protested against Catholic Church became Protestants. This is that Protestant. Switzerland is 48% Protestant. Heidi Gilsing is a Swiss. Therefore, Heidi Gilsing is 48% Protestant. Which policy is committed in this argument? Hasty generalization, policy of composition, ad hominem, begging the question. Switzerland is 48% Protestant. Heidi Gilsing is a Swiss. Therefore, Heidi Gilsing is 48% Protestant. Policy of composition is your answer. Okay, because if 48% of people are Protestants, then it might not be true of the whole, right? Plus, how can you say one single human being is 48% Protestant? Next, all household pets are domestic animals. No unicorns are domestic animals. Therefore, some unicorns are not household pets. Existential fallacy, denying the antecedent, affirming the consequent, drawing affirmative conclusion from negative premises. It is an existential fallacy. Unicorns do not exist. Also, drawing affirmative conclusion from negative premises will not be applicable here because the conclusion is negative. Some unicorns are not household pets. So the conclusion drawn is negative. Next, which informal fallacy is committed in the statement? Of course, you want to buy XYZ toothpaste. There must be a reason why 90% of India brushes with XYZ toothpaste. Slippery slope, hasty generalization, argumentum ad populum, strawman fallacy. Yep. 3 is your answer. See, if you feel that we are wasting time by practicing so many questions, fallacies is a topic. The more examples you understand, the more it gets committed to your memory. Okay. When we are solving these questions, we don't have to remember just one. We need to go through all the fallacies again and again. It strengthens the concept. That's the only reason why I've taken so much questions. By this time, you have already realized what kind of questions are asked. So the purpose here is to ensure that there is clarity in the concept. Okay, by practicing. Next, which fallacy is committed in the following argument? When I called you, you were neither in your class nor in the laboratory. Why are you avoiding me? Circular argument, red herring, complex question, slippery slope. This is a real tricky one. Okay, so the answer is red herring. Yeah, misinterpreting it so that it becomes easier to attack. If the background was not given, then we could have said it's a complex question. Okay. And why are you avoiding me is a question. It's not a conclusion. So slippery slope cannot be put here. Circular argument, of course, does not apply in this case. Next, there must be intelligent life on other planets. No one has proven there isn't. Very, very similar to, we've already done this. Come on. Yes, it is appeal to ignorance. Because there is no proof, that means it is there. Next, if you like ketchup and you also like ice cream, then you would sure like ketchup ice cream. Which policy is committed here? If you like ketchup and you also like ice cream, then you surely like ice cream. Ketchup ice cream. Slippery slope. No. It is not a conclusion which is far-fetched. It is actually fallacy of composition. Ketchup and ice cream are two parts. You like ketchup, you like ice cream. May not be true of ketchup ice cream. Can't even imagine it. Clear with this? Next, Indian pharmaceutical companies are profitable. Therefore, average Indian pharmaceutical company is profitable. Policy of division, hasty generalization, slippery slope, policy of accident. Think again. Are we talking about exceptions? Are we not talking about exceptions? Are we considering them? It is the policy of accident. Based on a rule that applies to most of the, what should I say? Most of the things involved, you are not considering exceptions. So you say average Indian pharmaceutical company is profitable, but there might be a lot of exceptions in this. More laws have been added in the past 5 years than ever before. Yet the number of crimes committed during the same period has significantly increased. Therefore, to bring the crime rate down, we must eliminate the laws. More laws have been added on the books in past 5 years than ever before. Yet the number of crimes committed during the same period has significantly increased. Therefore, to bring the crime rate down, we must eliminate the laws. Yes. Is the crime increasing because the laws are increasing? No, right? That is false cause. What is good for each individual? What is good for each individual type of business cannot be bad for economy as a whole. What kind of policy is this? Red herring is usually negative. It is the policy of composition. Each individual business, economy as a whole. Next, here you will find one policy which comes for the first time. The other three you would know. Bandwagon argument, strawman argument, red herring argument, begging the question. I'll just increase the font size. Arguer misrepresents an opponent's position. Arguer assumes the point to be proven. Arguer appeals to reader or listener's desire to be accepted or valued. Arguer tries to distract the attention of audience by raising irrelevant issue. So the answer here is 3. Okay, bandwagon argument means appealing to the reader or listener's desire to be accepted or valued. Joining the bandwagon. Don't we say that? That is called bandwagon argument. Come on, join us. You will prosper in life if you join us. That is an appeal to the other person's need to be valued or accepted. The rest of them we have already talked about. Strawman argument is misrepresentation, red herring is raising irrelevant issues, and begging the question is circular reasoning. It assumes the point to be proven. So that's all about policies. Okay, but the session is not ended. We still have 15 minutes and we still have an entire topic called Indian logic system to cover. Okay, so in Indian logic system, when we talk about what they call is Nyaya epistemology, pramanas, then anumanas. I thought if I start that entire topic, it might not get completed. So I thought that I'll take a later on topic, which is Hetvabhas, that is fallacy based on Indian logic systems. So far, the fallacies that we have learned are based on Western reasoning or Aristotelian logical reasoning. Now, what we're going to talk about based on Indian logical reasoning, based on Nyaya epistemology of Indian books, what is fallacies? Okay. Now, here, you see, Indian logical fallacies, before we go to that, when we talked about Western reasoning, we talked about major term, minor term, and middle term. Okay. Here also we have a major term, minor term, and middle term, but the meaning is completely different. But it's not different. You can draw a parallel, but let's assume the meaning is different because the moment you see the question, if you try to apply the syllogism rules, it will not be applicable. They will say middle term in the question, but it is the middle term of Indian Nyaya philosophy, Indian logic system. Okay. The meaning of the terms is different here. There is no syllogism in Indian Nyaya philosophy. For it goes from inductive reasoning to deductive reasoning. Okay. Just give me a moment. Not sure if I included that here. Okay. So this is the difference between Indian and Western logic system. Questions have been asked based on this. Aristotelian logic is deductive, whereas Nyaya logic is both deductive and inductive. We start with inductive and deductive in the same statement of reasoning. Okay, it's not separate. The emphasis is on formal validity, structure-based logical reasoning in Aristotelian logic, whereas in Nyaya logic, it is based on formal and material, both validity. We'll understand the meaning of material validity in a few moments. Fallacies focus on formal fallacies only, whereas Hetvabhasa or Indian Nyaya logic fallacies are material fallacies. Role of induction is separate and less formalized in Aristotelian logic, so you could say that it is more of a deductive reasoning. Whereas Indian Nyaya logic, it is an integral part. The example emphasis is on abstract logical forms like we have in syllogism, whereas in Nyaya logic, it is on concrete examples, udaharan, and perception. Understand this. There are questions in which statements are given and it is asked whether the statement is true or false. Okay. You can take a screenshot of it. You will not get this information in one slide, at least in all the resources I know. Okay. Before we start with Hetvabhasa, we need to understand this basic Panch Avayavi Nyay. Avayav, which we can call proposition in Indian, in English language. In questions of UGC NET, instead of Panch Avayav, they have called it 5 propositions. Okay. Not every Indian word can have an English equivalent. So please pardon when you see the word proposition used twice. Okay, because I couldn't get a better word for it. If I call it a premise, that would be wrong. If I call it a statement, that would also be wrong. So just explaining that. 5 avayav or 5 prepositions: pratijna or pratigya, hetu, udaharan, upanay, nigaman. These are the 5 paths. When it comes to Indian logic version of inference, how do we infer logic? We go by 5 avayavs. First, there is proposition that the hill has fire. Then we mention the reason, because it has smoke. The hill has fire because it has smoke. Then an example is given. Wherever there is smoke, there is fire, like in a kitchen. Then, based on that example, that reasoning is applied in the proposition that the hill has smoke just like the kitchen. That is called upanay. And nigaman, or the conclusion, is therefore the hill has fire. The hill has fire because it has smoke. Wherever there is smoke, there is fire, just like a kitchen. The hill has smoke just like the kitchen. That is why, therefore, the hill has fire. Panch avayavi nyay, or panch avayav, or 5 propositions. Based on this, a question has been asked. Among the 5 propositions in Nyaya syllogism, okay, see, we don't have parallels for it in English. So we call it Nyaya syllogism just to differentiate, or Indian logic system. The first, pratigya, coincides with the 5th, nigaman. That is, they both are similar. Second statement, among the 5 propositions in Nyaya syllogism, the hetu, the second, coincides with the 4th, upanay. I'll show you the previous example. Here the first says 1st and 5th, 2nd and 4th. They coincide. Now look at this and think of which one is true, which one is false. Both are true, both are false. First and 5th, 2nd and 4th. Now you can tell me the answer. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so the answer is both the statements are correct. See, if you see here, the hill has fire, the hill has fire. Because it has smoke, the hill has smoke. Udaharan or example is different. So you propose something, you give a reason for it, then you use an example to prove it, and then you say again that because of this reason, we have reached the conclusion. So pratigna and nigaman coincide, hetu and upnay coincide. Memorize it. Okay? Clear with this? Next. The minor term, major term, and middle term. This is Western equivalent roughly, but that's not how we call it in Indian logic system. We use the terms paksha, sadhya, and hetu, tark, or ling. All 3 are same. Minor term or paksha is the subject about which a conclusion is drawn. Hill has fire because it has smoke. Here the subject of inference is hill. So hill is called paksha. Sadhya. Whatever you are trying to prove, that is called sadhya. Okay? Major term. The property or thing that you are trying to prove. And middle term, hetu, tark or link is the reason using which you are trying to prove. The reason or evidence used to prove the sadhya or the major term. So about the thing for which, the subject for which you are talking is your paksh or minor term. Whatever you are trying to prove is your major term or sadhya. Both these words can be there in exam. Either they can call it major term, either they can call it sadhya. You should be ready with both. And hetu, tark and link or middle term can be used to talk about the reason. A similar example, the first three columns are same here, only the example column has changed. Paksh, mother is kind because she cooks food. What are we talking about? Our paksh or minor term is mother. What are we trying to prove? That she is kind. Sadhya, major term, that she is kind. What is the reason? The hetu, the tark, the link that we are giving, which is our middle term, cooking food. Mother is kind because she cooks food. Then you probably give an example to prove that. And that's you say that she cooks food just like the example. Therefore, mother is kind. This is how inference goes in Indian Nyaya syllogism. Clear with minor term, major term and middle term in Indian logic system? Great. In light of Nyaya syllogism, which of the following are correct? Sadhya is the major term, Linga is the minor term, Hetu is the middle term, Paksha is the minor term, Anuman is the inferential knowledge. Because we have not talked about Anuman, let's leave that for now. Let's just talk about ABCD. Is A correct? Is B correct? Is C correct? Is D correct? Yes, so the answer here is 2. Anuman actually means inferential knowledge. B is wrong because as you can see here, link, hetu, tark mean the middle term. Okay, so it does not mean the minor term. Paksh is the minor term, sadhya is the major term, and hetu or link or tark is the middle term. And Anuman is the inferential knowledge. Okay, so now that we have talked about this, we'll continue in the next session.